And so they, you know, this, yeah, we may have overreacted to our attorney having us do this because this really is difficult. You're still gonna have to find a way to put it in some. Okay.
Something. A team fold like that. It's just the money that passed us.
Yeah.
Sort of cool. And the biggest difference. And it's certainly all fluctuating.
Yeah.
All the curves. Is it so uncertain it can't be done? And I like the center.
Well,
But everybody could be on the
presage.
everybody could be on the look.
Yeah.
You know, I've got to really.
Well, I tell you.
No.
And Jeff.
Doug is hanging around.
I really-
I gotta go with Jeff. But that's just
What?
Doug.
Time to call to order the Monterey County, Monterey Peninsula Water Management District Board meeting for Monday, May 15th, 2023. And if I could please have a roll call.
Director Edwards,
Here?
Director Oglesby,
Here.
Director Riley,
Here.
Director Paw,
Here.
Director Eisenhart,
Here.
Vice Chair Anderson,
Here.
Chair Adams.
Here.
All 4 members are present.
Thank you. And now if we could please stand to do the Pledge of Allegiance. Please follow me. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Are there any additions and corrections to tonight's agenda?
No.
Thank you very much. And now we will go to public communication. Is there anyone who would like to make any comment on items that are not on tonight's agenda?
So we could start with in-person public comment. Is there anybody that would like to approach the lectern for public comment? So I do see one raised hand. And at this time, I would like to invite Michael Baer. Michael, when you're ready, please present your comment.
Hey, everyone, and I just want to shout out to Mary Adams, Chair Adams. I read in the paper that you will not be doing supervisor after 24, and I just want to thank you, be one of the first to thank you for all your wonderful work, and you still have more than a year to go, so I'm looking forward to a nice long year of productive work. What I'd like to comment about, so I was at the meeting where you said it was going to be $448 million for the buyout. And I've been thinking about this. You know, the public is facing, I believe the public is facing a liability of about $200 million on the desal plant. And I guess there's about $50,000 for, or $50 million, I'm sorry, $50 million for the Monterey pipeline, and there was some pumps and other pipelines, maybe $10 million. So there might be $60 million of assets. But what about the other $140 million of assets? The public is going to be liable for that because you know that Cal-Am is going to be going to the CPUC to try and collect on that. And I know there's this rule about used and usable, but unless Cal-Am agrees to just eat that 140 million or whatever it is, it's mostly legal fees and whatever else they're charging us for. I don't see a infrastructure beyond about 60 million. I just think I just wonder how that adds into the equation of $448 million, or if that's, you know, if that's going to be part of the eminent domain. It should be on the table. Dave Stoltz said that you know, you're not going to be, you know, buying something that doesn't exist. It's just an idea. It's just a whole bunch of paper as far as the desal plant goes. But I hope you are considering that Cal-Am is going after the community, not just you. And they're going to try and get that 140 million if they can. And just for you to be mindful of that as you move forward into eminent domain. So I'm very curious to hear about how much ever you can tell us about where that process is later in the meeting. And thank you for your time, everybody, for all your time and service. That concludes my comments tonight.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you both for your comments on this meeting, and thank you also for the personal comments. I appreciate them very much. Is there anyone else who has their hand raised for public comment on items not on today's agenda?
Chair Adams, I see no raised hands, so I return this back to the board.
Thank you very much. So with that, we will close public comment and move on to our consent calendar. We have 6 items on our consent calendar. Is there any board member who wishes to either comment or pull anything from consent calendar? Yes, Mr. Riley.
I'd like to pull item 3 for a comment.
Okay. Is there anyone else who wishes to pull anything for comment? Okay, I'll go out to the public and see if there is any member of the public, either in house or online, that wishes to pull anything for comment or question from the consent calendar. Seeing no one, thank you very much. We'll bring it back to Mr. Riley.
Page 35 is a summary of revenue and expenditures through the last period. And I noticed that all 3 of our main revenue sources are down. And I didn't know whether that was related to anything or whether that's normal this time of year. I didn't see a reference to it being cyclical by season. And I didn't know, I'm just pointing out that we're watching, that's all. And then that's only one comment. And the other comment is, I didn't know if the mechanics loan payoff is still in the picture. Is that going to be a budget issue in the future? I'm just curious about the timing of both the reaction to this and the mechanics loan.
Yep. So mechanics loan will be an agenda item for the special budget workshop on the 25th. So that will be crystal clear at that time. And then as far as the revenues go, there is some seasonality. The water supply charge reflects probably about 80 or 90% of the total through April. But I don't believe April was recorded. What was the page number you had?
35.
No, as of March 31st.
Right. So you'll see that there, so that's only about 60% of the collections. So that's why that's lower than normal, but we allocate the expected revenues kind of on a equal monthly amount. So the budget assumes they're coming in and that they would have been, at this point in time, more than half a year would be in, but it's not really true because they come in chunks because it's on the tax bill. Then our property taxes are also a result of the tax bill. So those two are off. And the user fee, it doesn't make sense that it would be much lower than budgeted because we're pretty good and it's probably going to come in higher than what was budgeted. So I think as a whole on the user fee.
And that seems to be closer anyway to the.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I'm satisfied. And I move approval of the consent calendar.
Thank you. Is there a second? Very good. We have a motion by Mr. Riley and a second by Ms. Anderson. Could we please have all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposition? No. Okay, thank you very much. With that, we'll close consent calendar and move into our general manager's report.
Thank you. We've got a few things to talk about. The first is compliance with regulatory water supply issues. Let's see if my remote works with his machine. It does. Yay. So on the Monterey Peninsula Water Supply or Water Resource System, again, you can see target versus actual, and this is through the end of April. I just wanted to point out that the significant difference between the target and actual on the Carmel River Basin is a combination of reassigning much of the use from the Carmel River to the Table 13 water right because it was a rainy season, and the aggressive use of Carmel River pumping going to ASR injection. There's only so many wells and capacity on the Carmel River. So when this was evolved, the target didn't assume a big rainy season. And so you can't, you take the same amount of capacity, but now we're aggressively putting it in the ground or recategorizing it to Table 13. So that's the reason for the disparity there. And then on some of the other, yeah, go ahead, forward. Is it just frozen?
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. Here are the other projects and water rights. Pure Water Monterey Recovery is tracking pretty well. I think, well, at least one comment I received this morning was, gee, why is it looking like the company could be up at 4,000 acre feet by the end of the year? Well, we tend to deliver their water first in a fiscal year. That's a fiscal year contract. But even on a water year basis, what that means is within the October 1st to September 30th timeframe, you're still going to have overlap with May and June, which are the end of the fiscal year. So if we've front loaded the fiscal year, you're basically going to see a 0 in May and a 0 in June so that you begin to catch back up. And so it's not like we're just running gangbusters on Pure Water Recovery and it's going to go to some bigger number. It'll end up resting for the water year at roughly 3,500. And then Table 13 I mentioned earlier, if it didn't rain, it would have been 0. And the company's had the benefit of receiving rain and being able to target that water right during these heavy rainy season rains. Should I try again, Joel, or you want to just advance?
Just having a little trouble. The Zoom participants, they're seeing something different than what's being displayed here.
Oh, really?
Yes, not really too sure why that's the case. So I will ask Sarah to share it and might
Okay.
work out.
Are there any other comments you would like to make while we have this brief
Yeah.
respite here?
We'll just kind of jump ahead and we'll come back to this.
Thank you.
And let me give you a slight update on water supply projects, which is item 8, and we can come back to this if possible. On the expansion of Pure Water Monterey, we had a bidders conference and site visit last May 9th, so last Tuesday. And there are 2 contracts that are being let. One is the advanced water purification facility improvements. So that's at the site that you've gone and toured. We had 6 general contractors showing interest in that. That's a really good number. And then the other is the injection well contract for the injection field. And we had 5 contractors interested in that. So we're very excited about that in terms of the competitive nature of it all. We look still forward to July 31st with an award and then about a 2-year construction period. So that's going well. I could.
The closed session report.
Well, I've still got a couple others on here. So on the item 10, we are taking a hard look at the district website. And so for those of you directors who may have a particular either satisfactory or unsatisfactory experience, if you want to send your comments to either myself or Joelle via email, just let us know and we can address those. And to any members of the public who have particular things they'd like to see in a revamped website, go ahead and use the email address comments@mpwmd.net. I also wanted to let the public know that on April 17th, the Los Padres Dam and Reservoir Alternatives and Sediment Management Study was posted to our website, and it is available there. If you go under the tab that's marked Water Supply and Los Padres Dam and Reservoir as a sub-tab, you can access that very lengthy consulting engineers report, which we will probably talk more about later in the summer going forward. And that's it for verbal report.
Should we do the overview of FEMA?
Well, Simona
part of that?
Mossbacher's online, and she also has a few slides that Joelle will be presenting. So
Got it.
until we resolve that
Okay.
issue.
I also have them on my computer, so if you want me to do it now, I can do it.
If you can screen share, I think we need to get out of this.
Yeah, let me try and here.
Yeah.
Zoom participants see.
We don't know. So Simona can share from hers, or do you want me to?
Can you all see what I'm sharing?
Not yet.
No.
Okay.
I think we, yeah, let's just see what Simona's doing. If you hit escape, there you go.
Simona, could you give it another try?
Yes, I just
Looks like
did.
this is it. We've got it.
We got it.
Okay, let me see if I can go into present mode here. Okay, you can hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Perfect.
Great. Well, good evening. So I'm going to go over a little bit of the FEMA OES process and where we're standing in terms of getting some public assistance for the costs that we incurred from the winter storms that happened in both January, and then there was a little bit of damage that happened in the March disaster storms as well. So just an overview, we're applying for 2 separate grants. There's one from FEMA, the public assistance, which usually covers a majority. They cover between 75% to 100% of damages. And then we also are applying through the state, and they cover 75% of the remaining 25% that FEMA does not cover. So at the end of it, either the district will pay 0 for a particular project or up to 6%, 6.15. So we end up not paying a lot, which is good. It's a very long and detailed process, but good news is that we are towards the end of it. And you can see I have a little red arrow here. We're in the final project reviews for all of our projects, except for the one that we incurred during the March storms. So we've gone through a lot of reviews, site inspections, and we are on track right now, which is great. It's been a couple months, but they go through a lot of different things, especially because a lot of the work is on the waterway and we're dealing with endangered species in there. So they have a lot of environmental reviews they have to do, but we have passed all of those with flying colors. So our current projects right now, in regards to the first disaster, the January storms, we have 4. So we have our debris removal from the right of way, the road. There were some damages that happened because of the slides, the rock slides and the water. And then there was also some debris that we had to remove from close to the rearing channel. Those, because we completed them before a certain date, are going to be 100% reimbursable. Then we also have debris removal in the Carmel River. That's a work in progress that we are completing. And we still have a little ways before we have to have that completed. Then we have our Sleepy Hollow RAS building and some of the equipment in there, the irrigation tanks, the pumps that all had to be removed. That's also in progress. And the 4th project that we've submitted is for the weir, the counting station that usually goes into the river. And that's also in progress. It hasn't been completed. The storms that happened in March caused some more debris and mudslides onto the road that had to be cleared out so we could access the facility, and that has been completed and will be 100% reimbursable. We also are implementing some mitigation efforts, which FEMA will reimburse part of for us. Those include a backflow preventer, which has been installed, an emergency sump pump, which we have installed, but we still need to hook up the wiring. And then the last thing that we want to do is waterproofing the 2 to 3 feet of the building to prevent future floods from happening. This, we've gotten an estimate, it's a little more than we thought was going to happen, but we still are planning on going ahead with that. And we're in talks with FEMA to get reimbursed for that. So this table here is going to show the estimated reimbursements that we're getting. So these are all numbers that FEMA has provided to us. So these are actual dollar amounts that we're going to get back. So I'm going to go through this just a little bit. So the first one is the debris removal from the road and the rearing channel, which happened in the first storm. And this is, since this is completed work, this is exactly what we spent. So we spent the $39,000. FEMA says, yes, we're going to reimburse you all of that. And that's in the final stages of approval. So we are pretty much guaranteed to get that back. The next is the debris removal from the Carmel River, which we are in progress. So we tell them what we think it's going to cost, and then they have their own team that looks at what needs to be done, and they say, this is what we think it's going to cost, and this is what we're going to give you. So FEMA has estimated that it'll cost us $38,000 to complete this. They will give us $28,000, and then the state will give us $7,000. So we're going to be paying $2,000. And this could cost less for us, and we would still get to keep the remainder of the money and apply it to our cost share for this or another project. If it ends up costing more, which no one, for this particular project, no one thinks it's going to cost more than what they're estimating. But if that is the case for any of these projects where we finish the work and say, okay, we actually spent $10,000 more, then we can go back and provide them that information and they can increase the money. But if we end up spending less, we get to keep the money. The next project is for the Sleepy Hollow facility. And that was the pumps and the irrigation tanks, and we needed a new flood sensor. They are estimating $74,000. That includes mitigation efforts. So this is kind of an ongoing one where we're going to go back and see if we can get some more money. But if they don't agree to that, we'll still be getting the $55,000 plus state's portion, which is around $14,000. And we end up spending a little under $5,000. For the counting station, the weir, They are estimating $36,000 or $37,000, and that's very close to what Fish Bio, which is the company that installed and made the fish weir, who we're going to contract with to repair it. That's very close to their estimate. And so FEMA cost share would be $27,000, state close to $7,000, and us about $2,000. And then the last project that we have submitted, or we're in the process of, since this was the newer one from the March storms, this one was $7,000 or $7,600. And that, since that one is already completed, we would get 100% reimbursement for that. So all in all, we are looking pretty good. And like I discussed before, there's cost adjustments. So these are all, most of these, if the work is not completed, is going to be based off of an estimate. So if we end up going over that, we can go back and try and get some more money. But if they overpay us, then we can keep that and apply it to our cost share. Time frame, any of the categories for emergency work, so that's all debris removal, we have until July 14th. And so that's the other, we've already completed the road debris removal. That just leaves us with the Carmel River debris, which is ongoing because we haven't contracted with anyone. We've tried, but it's mostly our employees going out there and, you know, sawing, doing cut and toss of that debris. If we go past the July 14th date, that's okay. We just have to file an extension with, which we probably will do a couple month extension just to make sure we finish that. And then we do have 18 months for permanent work, which should take us nowhere near that time. And then big question, when are we going to see the money? Well, like I said, we're in the final stages of approval, which means we've gone through all the hard stuff. If this is just their final review of it, then we will sign off. And then I'm hoping that most of the projects will be finalized and approved in the next week or two. And then FEMA sends the money to the state and the state will send the money to us. So hopefully in the next month, we will see the total of the money that they're going to give us, which I think I totaled it up and it's close to like 190,000. And yeah, if anybody has any questions or anything, you can reach out to me or please.
Thank you so much for your presentation, Simona. And I think we do have some questions, and I know that I have one myself, and I'll go ahead and ask it quickly before the others do. And that is that from the experience that I've had at the county, I know that there are some damages that we've had from the 2017 mudslides up on Colorado Canyon that are still not paid. And I'm wondering if we have any sense of our being able to ensure that we have the cash flow to be able to continue going if FEMA is a bit slower to pay than we would hope.
Yes, and we do. We've got the cash flow covered. It's probably because our damages were small relative to the whole. But you know, 190,000. I give a lot of credit to Simona and her team and the field team that's gone out there and done the work. But we can certainly cover it.
That's great.
No problem.
Good. Okay. Any board members have questions? Yes, Mark.
Hi, Simone. Just a very quick question. You indicated that on the Carmel River cleanup aspect, it's mostly the district's employees that are doing the work since we don't have a contractor hired. So my question is that being monetized when a district employee is doing the work, or employees for purposes of collecting money from FEMA and OES?
Yes, absolutely. We're recording all the hours that they're putting in, and that is part of the estimate that they're going to reimburse us. And also, I didn't mention, but there's another category that we're going to get reimbursed for, and that's management time. So that's my time, Thomas's, Maureen's, Larry, any of our time that's put into this, they separate that another category, and that's additional money that gets sent to us.
Okay, and then my comment is, by my rough calculations, that's about $200,000 worth of expense or estimated expense for the damages. I know that might change. And also by my calculation, out of that 200,000, based on the work by you and your team within the district will only be eventually on the hook for about 10,000. That's amazing. And can I just say thank you on behalf of the public? What and your presentation was amazing. That may be a little over the top, but not really. It's excellent. I mean, saving that kind of money is excellent. And I'm grateful.
Yes, and once they send us the money, I didn't mention that either, but it's not, the work doesn't end there because they send the money and then we need to do quarterly reports. They need to make sure that we've spent the money correctly. So it's a long process and it's going to be a lot of work, but obviously, as you've seen, it's going to be worth it for the district.
And it sounds like you are on top of it. It's amazing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mike. Are there any other board members who have questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll go out to the public and I'll first see if there's anyone in our auditorium, chambers, whatever we want to call it, who wish to make comments or ask questions. Seeing no hands raised, how about online?
Chair Adams, I do see a hand raised by Michael Bear.
Mr. Bear. And do you have a question on this or comment? We're not hearing you, Michael. I think what we'll do is, you've got your hand flashing.
Sorry, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, thank you.
Okay, somehow I didn't see my mic and usually it comes up and anyway. So I just, the notes, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, the notes, I have something else on in the background, sorry. Working on the river, the fact that you guys go out and do the work is amazing. I appreciate the transparency. I've never actually heard, seen such detail. $200,000 is a lot of money, and saving 180,000 of it is fantastic. And to see that much detail on that small aspect of the work that you do is transparency in government. I hope you're taping this and it's evidence for eminent domain, because like the difference between this and not knowing anything about what CalAm does and what happens in New Jersey and what they figure out, this is the opposite of that, and this is fantastic evidence. So thank you to Simona and everybody. You guys are doing a fantastic job. This is the best public agency I've ever seen. So I haven't seen that many, but you guys top it. Thank you very much.
We'll take the compliment. Thank you very much, Michael. Are there any other hands raised?
All right.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much. We will close that particular item within your report and see if we want to go back to the other item or no.
Joel tells me he's hanging out at Sarah's computer so he can run the last presentation. So Joel, if you want to bring that up and get to about the fourth page.
And then you all can see my screen share here, right? It's up
Yes.
Okay.
No, at this point, we're seeing the timer.
Okay.
There we go.
And then we're gonna go to the third slide here.
Fourth. slide.
Item 7, we see it.
Okay.
And one more. There we go. That's perfect. Back. All right. This is where we left off, and this is production for customer service, which is our snapshot of demand in the system. And you can see what we talked about earlier, the smaller or lower Carmel River Basin numbers, but the higher Table 13 numbers. So think of those as kind of the sum of the two is Carmel River sources, as would be Malpaso. The pure water Monterey recovery, right in the middle of this chart, that's the one to look for next month and the month after to see very likely zeros in the May and June months. So that's what's going on in there. And then of course, Seaside Basin, those numbers were a little bit lower until March and April, but there's still about 662 acre feet to go over the next 5 months. So you're still going to see, numbers there over 100 to 150 acre feet on average per month. So it's not the same month to month. It's seasonal, and that's some of what's going on. the key thing at the tail end is you can see we're still, total demand at 4936 is lower than last year to date by a little bit. So we still remain in that relatively flat customer demand area that we've been kind of stuck in for the last 7 to 8 years. On rainfall, the next chart, we're pretty much past the rainy season, but blue is the current year, and through the end of April, we were at 34.61, and there was actually a little May rain, which we'll see in the next chart. So, but we're 169% of the long-term average. But I think it's pretty over for the year. Next chart. The red line is the cumulative rainfall, and you can see right at the beginning of May, there's some blue bars. That is daily rainfall total. So we're right at about 35 inches for the year, which is probably around fourth or fifth wettest ever. Next chart. So the orange dotted line is the current year. And you can see for a while through February, we were actually ahead of the wettest year ever rainfall wise, which was 1998. But now we're pretty much squarely in the extremely wet. You know, if everything ended today, no more rain, we're in the extremely wet category. But as I said, I think it's the fourth or fifth or sixth wettest on record. And then with respect to stream flow, the curious thing here is we're at 314% of long-term average. So rainfall was only 160%, 169%, but stream flow is greater. And that means it's just not absorbing as much water. It got very saturated and it just continued to come down rather than go into storage. And we have an odd situation where usable storage is actually at 102% of long-term average. So I know John's on the call. I would ask him to explain how that's mathematically possible, but I'm not going to. And then finally, the last chart is ASR injection. And the attenuation curve, meaning looking at where we are and what the stream flow data shows us, pretty much indicates we'll be able to continue to inject all the way to the end of May, which is the end of the permit season. And the current projected final total is 1,666 acre feet is the target that we're looking for. So you see here, we haven't even broken through 1,400. So couple more weeks and we should be just under 1,700, which will be the second most ever. And it befits a really wet year like this. We had some hiccups in terms of availability of wells and things that we've talked about previously that we don't need to rehash here. And that concludes the general manager's report for today with all the jumping around, but that would be it.
Thank you. Yes.
Jim, for the last one you just mentioned, ASR, will we have a chance to have any bigger improvement next year? If certain things are done by Cal-Am, could we have a bigger year if we get this kind of rainfall, which some folks are predicting?
Well, I think what we would hope for first is no flooding so that there would be no voluntary shutoff of wells for a period of days. And then, the water's got to recede so that you can purge those wells, back flush them back to the river and so forth. So that would be number one, is hope for no flooding that results in wells going off. And then you may recall the Pierce well was down and there was a period of time that the pump stations weren't yet ready to go. So all of those things will be taken care of. So the Carmel Valley problems hopefully will be fully addressed. There is a rehab on the, I think, San Carlos well that should be back online. And I don't think the new Rancho Cañada well will be available next winter, but maybe.
That's the Rancho Cañada, but I don't think it's
Yeah. Yeah, so there's two rehab wells, Schulte and San Carlos, and then so those kind of minor issues, but we will still be stuck without additional extraction well capacity up here on the north end of their system. So they're going to continue to rely on ASR well number 3 during the winter for production. So we won't have back all the injection capacity that's possible.
So it's no chance we're gonna get improvement up here.
Right. Not yet.
Not yet, not yet. So anything they can do to protect those wells in the valley from not being flooded, run over, can we suggest anything to them that?
Well, the flooding, there's nothing we can suggest. I mean, that's a safety issue and an electricity issue. And then you invariably, if you get muddy water in there, it can bring bacteria and other things. So you have to meet water quality sampling to get it back online. So the best thing is to never lose a well due to flooding, number one. And the Pierce well was just bad timing to, have a significant well go out. So you're trying to keep tank levels at a certain height for public safety reasons. And, the 3 ways to do that, and you want to meet customer demand at the same time. So if you're trying to inject ASR water, meet customer demand, and do all these things at once, you can't be losing wells. I mean, that's really what it's about.
And just one more. I've seen a bunch of zeros up there on ASR. We're not going to be using any of that ASR water.
My water balance shows that they'll probably need about 600 or 700 acre feet of water to meet the current water year. It's kind of that ballpark. We've offset every year until pure water expansion is built. It's a 12 to 1,300 acre foot shortfall. And so you've seen 400 in table 13 water rights. Thank you, rain. You'll see some from Sand City desal. It's kind of fluctuate a little bit. They had, 15 acre feet 1 month, 0 1 month, and so forth. So it's these little pockets of water, Malpaso and so forth, that have to make up that shortfall this year, and it's stored water. So this year they're going to need to go to the ASR reserve for some of this water year's water. And it'll be the same case next year, very likely.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. We've had public comment on every other part of this item. Is there any member of the public that wishes to comment on this particular last item that was brought forward? And anyone online? Okay, great, very good. So with that, we will move on to our next item, which is the report from District Council.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to take this out of order and take number 12 first, which is the discussing the closed session items that you had on your agenda earlier. The board did meet in closed session at 5 p.m. There was one topic for that discussion, and that was conference with real property negotiators, namely Mr. Stoll. And the topic was the properties held by California American Water Company and the negotiation for the acquisition of those properties. As we all know, an offer to purchase was made by the district. CalAm this past month has responded by not accepting that offer. And so the board did discuss the offer, the rejection by CalAm, and the next steps in the process towards acquisition. General direction was provided to your negotiator, but no specific reportable action was taken. That concludes my report on number 12.
Thank you.
I'll go on back to number 11, report on pending litigation. There's quite a number of pending cases. The first are the set of cases on the Monterey Peninsula Taxpayers Association, the challenge to the district's collection of the connection charge. And those are 2 challenges. Judge Panetta did previously issue a ruling in the MPTA 2 case. The district has made a motion for a new trial, and the hearing on that motion is going to be held on May 19th. And that's combined with a case management conference on the MPTA 3 case. The importance there is that the judge has an opportunity to order a new trial, or to modify her judgment, or to take no action whatsoever. And if no action is taken, then the motion is deemed denied, and the case then is over at the Superior Court level. Thereafter, there's the opportunity for an appeal. Second matter that's pending in the Superior Court is the district's challenge to LAFCO's action. LAFCO did act on the district's application to exercise its latent powers. The district has challenged that. The last brief is due on June 30th, and a trial on the merits in that case is set for August 7th, and that's before Judge Wills. The next update is the challenge that the district and also Marina Coast Water District and the City of Marina have made to the approval of the Coastal Commission of the Coastal Development Permit sought by Cal-Am for the desal. The record of that in that case has not yet been prepared. The Coastal Commission has a very involved process. The request has been, for the record has been made, and deposit has been made for that record to be prepared. The Coastal Commission says that they queue up all of their many records that they need to be prepared, and that their estimate of time is that they will first give us a draft index of the record before they actually prepare the record. They won't give us a specific time. They estimate that it will take a minimum of 6 months to prepare the record. They also remind us that the same staff that prepares the record responds to Public Records Act requests, which has a higher priority than preparing their record in this case. So there's going to be a case management conference in this case, and on August 22nd. And one of the things that will be discussed at that time is where are we with the record production, because the plaintiffs have offered to prepare the record by themselves, subject to the review and approval by the Coastal Commission. The Coastal Commission states that their practice is not to allow anyone to prepare the record other than themselves. So we will see where we are with the record production in August. Before August, we do have a demur. There are 4 causes of action that have been alleged. There is one cause of action that states that the Coastal Commission failed to provide due process by not allowing access to certain materials before the hearing. If this was a CEQA case, there would have been mandatory access to those materials. This is not a CEQA case. This is a case under Coastal Commission's rules of practice. Coastal Commission does use CEQA as its guide, but does not provide these materials publicly beforehand. This is a matter that's not been fully litigated, so there is no precedence. And that is the 4th cause of action is does the Coastal Commission's pattern and practice of providing materials conform to the Environmental Quality Act. The Coastal Commission has demurred to that, and the demur will be heard on that 4th cause of action only on July 14th. All those matters are coming before Judge Wills. There are 3 pending proceedings before the Public Utilities Commission. The first is the valuation rulemaking proceeding. This takes a look at water utility acquisitions and whether or not there has been full compliance with the public water resource investment process and what effects it has had on ratepayers. This is rulemaking, so it's not an adjudicatory proceeding, but there have been 4 workshops that are planned to have been held. There is the 3rd workshop is now set for June 13th, and that workshop is going to adjust on ratepayer impacts of utility acquisitions.
And on that topic, we do have reply comments that are prepared to go on the 2nd workshop, but the judge has not yet called for comments on the 2nd workshop, which is just a little bit out of character with how the 1st workshop was handled. So
it's a moving target.
Did they change the ALJ on one of those?
No, that I will get to that.
Okay.
Karen. one more in between, if I could. The second is the CalAM's general rate case, and that's before ALJ Rambo. Their testimony has been provided by 3 district witnesses, Mr. Stolt, Mr. Lear, and Stephanie Locke. The district has propounded data requests and has submitted his testimony. CalAM has submitted rebuttal testimony. In that case, there's going to be a mandatory ADR, alternative dispute resolution settlement conference, and that's going to be on June 25th. And I'm sorry, that's May 25th. The June 9th is the mandatory status conference in that case. So we're in the process.
Is this mandatory ADR in all GRCs?
Yes, under the new processes, yes.
Huh.
And the last item is the Public Utilities Commission proceeding that affects the Pure Water Monterey and CalAM's participation in the water purchase agreement. As we know, the water purchase agreement, the amended and restated agreement, was in fact signed at the end of March. That's the case. Formally, it was ALJ Robert Haga that was handling that by himself. And recently on April 28th, ALJ Rambo was also assigned to that, which I think is helpful because ALJ Rambo has had a in-depth understanding of the district's relationship with CalAM and CalAM's general rate case. And so that will help inform his participation in this as the ALJ. In that case, reply testimony was provided by district witness, Mr. Stoll, on May 5th. At the moment, there are pending requests for guidance from the ALJ as to what happens next, because there is another phase to this proceeding, and that phase to the proceeding is going to be looking at supply versus demand and what water is actually needed by the Monterey Peninsula. And that phase has not yet been calendared. And it's helpful, I think, from our perspective, that ALJ Rambo is going to have a direct role. That concludes my summary of matters that are before us.
Well, it sounds like it's going to be a very busy summer,
Yes.
without question. Any comments or questions from the board members on these items? Yes, Al.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Laredo
Yes, sir.
and General Manager. Measure J,
Yes.
this question keep coming across. What are our liabilities and what are risks? Can we answer that for the public, for the record, so we can refer people back to this meeting that question been answered? I see the person that been answering is not in the meeting tonight.
I can't quantify what that is. The district will include within its cost of acquisition, if acquisition does in fact occur, the expenses that the district has incurred, but that is being funded on a pay-as-you-go basis. So the district's reliance on special witnesses, on special counsel, my efforts, Mr. Stoltz's efforts, those have all been paid for as we go, and I believe that is going to be your continuing plan. If we are successful in acquiring CalAM, then CalAM will also be entitled to reimbursement of its attorney's fees. And that'll be the back end of the proceeding. When it's all said and done, the CalAM would then make a request for attorney's fees, and there will be an examination of the attorney's fees. Are they reasonable and prudent? And to what extent should they be allowed and added into the cost of the acquisition? If CalAM or if the district does not proceed for any reason, if the district chooses not to proceed once a eminent domain action is filed, or if the district proceeds and does not prevail at any stage, then CalAM could make a request for the attorney's fees that it expended as well in defending its position. Once again, those requests for fees will be examined to say, were they reasonable and prudent, and were they needed to mount the defense that CalAM would be mounting? And then that would be an ordered pay that the district would be obligated to pay for.
Okay, now, Jim, we had consultants sort of like look at what our liabilities could be. What's that cost range from? You know, I've seen some costs 7 to 12, or could you help us with that?
Well, our own attorneys did an estimate of 15 to 25 million all in, but that includes our out-of-pocket costs. So as Dave mentioned, those are pay as you go. So those will already be incurred. And the remainder, you know, if you don't prevail at a bench trial, there could be a few million paid out. I know that folks like to say that City of Claremont, who lost at their bench trial, had, I believe it was 13 million of exposure there. That did include some of their own costs, not just the Golden State Water, I think it was, not just their attorneys. Our reserves right now exceed any estimate of what the company's legal fees could be through a bench trial. So we're not particularly concerned about the economic health of the district going forward through that. We have a sense of what the point of indifference is on a purchase price. So if a jury award was significantly over that and this board felt that it was no longer economic to pursue it and wanted to hand the keys to the car back to the company, then that exposure would be higher and could potentially exceed our reserves. We just don't know where we'll be at that point in time. It's definitely more than a year and a half to 2 years out. So that being said, you know, we've looked at ways to pay for that if it should happen. It's not discretionary, though. To date, it's doing the will of the voters. And until you are told that you can't proceed, or you make a decision that it's not feasible, or, you know, whatever your next decision as a group is. But the clock hasn't really started on the company's legal expenses that we would be facing. That starts with the filing of the eminent domain action. So anything that they've invested to date, and, you know, that's, you know, as Mr. Laredo points out, you know, there will be discussion about, was it, you know, let's see the list. When was the expenditure made? You know, everything that they've spent to date in trying not to get there is not related to the action. It precedes the action. So they're making an investment right now that would not be subject to reimbursement.
Okay, and just one more. LAFCO did a report, had a consultant. This was mentioned in that report too, wasn't it?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, I just want to make it clear because
It's not a surprise. It's been out there 4 or 5 times
and we have
publicly.
been transparent doing it.
Yep.
So anybody else would question us again, refer them to this meeting that it was answered again on this tape. Thank you too for that. Thank you, Chair.
Yes. Thank you. I just want to add for the record that to the question and answer on the litigation costs and risks associated with Measure J. For some reason, a few people out there that keep saying that by moving forward, the board is walking over a cliff blindfolded, and really nothing could be farther from the truth. The board has been briefed repeatedly about all these costs and risks, and considers litigation costs and litigation risks really at every decision point where it's a factor. And I feel as a board member, we've been well informed and updated pretty much, just consistently. So I think the board is well informed, has its eyes wide open, and will continue to consider all the costs and risks. And I just think it's important that the public know that.
Thank you very much for your comment. Yes, Ian.
And maybe Director Riley can help me with this. I think a lot of those arguments about the cost of losing or winning, the so-called buyout was shared with the public, and the public had a good understanding of that when they went to the polls and voted for Measure J. Right, a lot of these arguments were way before yes or no on Measure J because people wanted it to be voted down. So a lot of these arguments about the cost and the reaction to the cost and things like that were shared with the public. So well, my point is, it's more than just, I get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's more than just 6 people that understood some of the downside, if there is a downside. Could you speak to that?
I believe the campaign for Measure J was very transparent in terms of the risk and the general price estimates that were in the discussion point. And even Cal-Am at one point was saying that they're worth $1 million, and they volunteered that information without being asked. So $1 billion. I'm sorry, $1 billion. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, $1 billion. And I thought the public dialogue, at least the presentations that were made leading up to the election, was pretty transparent in terms of this is a big deal, and it's going to be expensive, and we think it's affordable in the long run, and we think it's worthwhile to pursue it. And that was the consistent message. I feel we didn't put a number on it, but we were consistently talking big numbers, and I feel like the public was not fooled anywhere along the line.
Thank you, Mr. Riley. Any other comments?
Madam Chair, I'd just like to
Yes.
remind the board, though, that a decision has not been made and will be made by you when you get all the information, and you'll be making very explicit findings in support of the decision that you end up making.
Thank you for that.
And the question went to possibilities. So I want
Got
to
it.
make sure we didn't say anything other than correctly on the record.
Thank you. Thank you. So let's go out to the public and see if there's any member of the public that wishes to comment on this. Is it a fuzzy bear?
At this time, I would like to invite Michael Ben. When you're ready, you can let yours.
Yeah, thank you. The unmute, it's working a little slower today, but anyway. Yeah, I got a lot of notes here. First of all, I want to thank council for the update on all the lawsuits. You know, that's really a very nice update. And I want to also reiterate, I worked on Measure J and on Measure O with Director Riley, and he's right. He's not making this up. It was transparent. I was part of all that, and I just want to say yes, that's true. And then you were talking about this workshop for the GRC. There's 2 workshops that have happened, and there's 2 more to happen. And is this something local that's part of rate setting and that the public is part of? And can we find out when those future ones are? And off of that, you're talking about ALJ Rambo. You know, I can write comments to the Public Utilities Commission on this rate case, but I didn't write about the fact that we haven't heard anything on the water supply debate for a whole year, because I wasn't sure that it was, you know, they're attached, right? So I can write about that. You know, the water, we should be hearing about this water supply. It's been way too long, and why are you taking so long? It's terrible how long all of this takes, both with the Coastal Commission and the PUC. And particularly the PUC has been just terrible. And that's also part of why we need to acquire Cal-Am, because we won't have to deal with the PUC anymore. And then the final question that I have is about the application filing for eminent domain. I didn't really hear anything about, you know, I think Dave Stolt said at the last meeting that it would be this summer sometime that the application would be filed. I'm just, you know, very curious, what's the timeline on eminent domain? Maybe next month we can get a little look at that. So that's everything I had to say related to this. And geez, it's a lot of stuff. You've bitten off a lot, but I can't imagine a better group to take it through. So keep up the great work. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Okay, with that, I think we will finally,
I believe you have two more.
oh, so sorry. Yes.
Melanie Chrislock. So yes, when people are talking about the risk of the legal fees, they really need to keep this in perspective of the risk of staying with Cal-Am. That, right, in the last 4 years alone, Cal-Am has added $26.4 million to our water costs. And they want another 15.3 million. There's no end in sight. I mean, people don't realize that how much money Cal-Am keeps adding to our water bills. It pales, the cost of these would pale in comparison. So, I mean, if anybody, starts bringing this up again, I hope you will point out to them the problem with staying with Cal-Am and how much it's costing us every year. And I just had one question for Dave Laredo. Did I understand that right? That whether Cal-Am wins or loses in eminent domain, we have to pay their legal fees either way? Just curious if I got that, if I understood that right. Thank you. You guys are doing a great job. Thank you so much for everything you're doing. I agree with Michael. You guys are the best. Thanks.
Thank you very much for your supportive comments. Do you want to make any comment?
When the comment is done,
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any other hands raised? Thank you.
Hi, thank you. First, a very big thank you to all of you. I want to note Dave Stoltz and as well as Dave Laredo for all of the extra work they're doing in regard to Measure J. I know that it's added on top of other work, so I realize the burden you're bearing, and I really appreciate that. These people that are talking about fear of the cost and trying to implicate the fact that Measure J somehow was pulling the wool over people's eyes. They're the same people that opposed this to begin with. And it's unfortunate that they're kind of doing a Donald Trump denial about the election. But people were very clear about what they were voting for. So I just want to go on the record for it because I worked on that campaign as well. We were really clear with people about what was being done, about the possible risks. And there's been a lot of talk lately about the rates won't go down, they're going to go up, even if it's a public agency. Well, I would rather my rates go up with a public agency than what Cal-Am is doing to us now. Whether they go down, it won't be as bad as what Cal-Am will do to us, especially if they get that desal going, which could raise rates 50 to 70% on top of all of the raises that they're doing now. So I just want to give you a lot of praise and encouragement during a hard time right now. But I have full faith that you have great financial management skills and you are cautious and conservative and you're not going to put this community at risk in terms of what you're doing. So thank you very much.
Chair Adams, I see no raised hands, so I'll return this back to the board.
Thank you very much.
Madam Chair, responding to two comments, Mr. Bear first, the Public Utility Commission's proceedings are in fact public. At the moment, all of those, both workshops and hearings are conducted by Zoom webinar. So individuals who are not parties will not be able to provide oral comment, but they can certainly observe and listen to everything that is said.
Good.
And on with Ms. Chrislock, yes, attorney's fees are payable, whether win or lose. Cal-Am will be reimbursed its reasonable and prudent attorney's fees as decided by a judge.
Thank you very much for that. Yes.
Add something briefly. In response to a question from Michael Bear, I think Mr. Bear might have mixed up two different proceedings. separate from the rate case, there's also a rulemaking proceeding on the rules governing water utility acquisitions that our council told us about. And so that's a whole separate proceeding that the district's also participating in.
And that's the one with the workshops. So
Yes, right.
the reference to workshops.
Thank you.
Good, thank you very much for that. Okay, seeing no other comments coming forward, I think that we're able to close this item, and we will now go to directors' reports, including AB 1234 reports on trips, conference attendance, and meetings. And I know several people attended the Aqua Conference that was in town just recently, and I'll go to my vice chair to see if she'd like to make comments.
I will. I spent 3 or 4 days at the conferences and heard a number of good talks. One particular conference had to do with it, a lot of collaboration between agencies, some work that was being done up at the Delta, by the Delta, and then northwest of Sacramento. And it was just a lot of small agencies working together and sharing their workforces to fix 100-year-old or whatever 50-year-old system to a trailer park, very small districts, and how well that was going to work together like that. Let's see. Went to a talk of it was interesting, groundwater recharge projects. It's still a roundtable, but there were, I don't know, like 10 giant round tables in the room, and how many different stages that people were at in their districts with water recharge. So it was soup to nuts. It was all over the place, but it was certainly something that most districts were either in the midst of doing, had thought about, they were on their list. And there's another thing I noticed at the conference is how many times in the Portola and the conference center, the toilets flush. When you walk into the stall, they just keep flushing. So whether you're sitting there or not, and I'm wondering, how much water are we losing with all these toilets flushing of these modern toilets? It's supposed to be so cool, these automatic flushing. So it's just a comment, something I noticed.
We're gonna do
something about that.
Why, thank you for your most insightful comments. Yes, Ms. Paul.
So I just,
Wait,
Yeah, I think it's Stephanie. She's taking notes.
Oh.
I'll just briefly make a few big picture observations about I went for 2 days. One is the importance of climate change to pretty much everything all these agencies are dealing with. The water supply planning, the demand management. I mean, it seems like the wildfire risks, the watersheds. It seems like climate change impacts are just everywhere in all of the work of the agencies. Not surprising, but it was striking. Another thing that struck me related actually is a lot of discussion about the need to invest in water infrastructure and how is that going to be paid for. So I won't get into any details, but that was a big topic. One other is a big concern about contaminants in the water, particularly this class of chemicals known as PFAS chemicals. There's the federal EPA has announced proposed drinking water standards for those contaminants. In fact, the comments are due the end of this month, and there'll probably be standards in place by the end of this year that will apply to all drinking water. And the proposed standards are basically almost nothing. Nothing is allowed of this class of chemicals because there is no safe level apparently. So I'm glad to, it's going to be a problem for water districts everywhere. And for land use planning for that matter, because there's so many different ways this stuff gets into the environment. But one good thing is that the water purification techniques for recycled water is able to get these contaminants out of the drinking water at least. So we're fortunate that we have a recycle water project that's up and running and can be expanded. And the last thing I'll mention is that late last year, the Aqua created a foundation, a 501c3, and the purpose of it is to train the next generation of water managers. And if you look around at all the people attending this conference, it's pretty striking that almost all of the general managers are older white men. There are some younger ones, but it's mostly. So, I mean, there really is a need to sort of develop a new generation of water managers, and it should be that new cadre of people should be, look like the people of California, and so this foundation is putting together programs for outreach and education, scholarships and mentorships and internships and that sort of thing. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you very much for that. I really appreciate it. Do you want to make some comments, Ian?
Yeah, I'll go quickly. Great conference, well done. I learned a lot of good networking. I went to this one was called Statewide Issues, Show Me the Money. And they were just talking about state grants and things like that. And what they realized is the state just goes out to bond the money, and then they just filter it out to everybody that wants to apply and eligible for the grants. But there's no state priority for the best use of the money to solve a statewide issue. When you talk about the Delta coming all the way down, no one's talking about how does the state make sure we keep more water in the state of California? And so a lot of people are just in agreement where, you go for the grant. So it keeps this one guy talked about his castle, right? We all have castles. This water district is castle. But going for the grants don't encourage you to work with anyone else. It's just you go for your grant money as the board directs you to go for your grant money, but that may not be the best to capture the water for storage or anything else, let alone state of California. So that's out there. And that was one issue that I thought that was important. So there's no state prioritization other than, hey, do good with the money. And then I was in a meeting with the chair, and I'm sorry, Amy, I'm sorry, but they were talking. I forgot the name of that plant that captured the water with the reed. What was it? It'll come to you later, but they were just talking about how, to capture more water, they were planting fields, 100 acres at a time, that this special reed will open up big, their roots will go far enough down, 5 to 6, 7 feet down, but when they die off, the hole in the ground would stay there. And so they were able to capture so much more water.
It was really interesting. It was some sort of seed.
Yeah, some type of seed, yeah. But I think that's one of the things that different communities that can do when we're talking about flooding these fields or capturing this storm drain off, that we should be encouraging them to do over the next several years. I thought it was interesting. A lot of us have a lot of acres out there that people don't want developed, but it can be used for some type of irrigation pond, so to speak. Right? So there was a lot of good things out there. So I appreciate going. Thank you, Chair.
Excellent. And I'll just comment that I share the sentiments of my colleagues. It really was excellent. At the very end, Maureen joined Amy and excuse me, and my previous chair and I just standing outside having the opportunity to just talk with folks. There were a couple of people that we were chatting with that really turned out. It was very interesting, the cards that you get. But one of the things that Karen had mentioned earlier is that there's also a focus really on looking at women And the foundation had a particular focus on that, that really encouraging women. And as I looked through the crowd of older white male people, there were a lot of women. There were a lot of women that were there. And I was very thankful to see that it seems to be an additional push that is that's going. But the conference I thought was really good. I really enjoyed the presentations that I saw. And then the only comment I will make is that we had, whatever happened, is that we were unable to join people for the lunches. At the very end, there was like the last sort of thing of the day. And I knew that Dave wasn't showing up, and I also knew that he would have paid for his ticket for lunch. So Amy and I were able to slip in on Dave Stoltz's name. So don't tell anybody, but it worked. But thank you very much for the opportunity to attend. It was really good, especially when I see so many people enjoying our area. It's wonderful to get to hear their comments about being able to just go out on the rec trail and, do you live here? Oh, it really was terrific, just really terrific. And they want to come back as always.
No, I was just gonna say that was a surprise that the lunch was not offered.
Yeah, that we couldn't get in. We missed the deadline.
Oh, that's what someone should have told me.
Yeah.
I got bold enough. I went, hey, is this scannable? He said, no, you're not. You're not taking lunch. You got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the lectures, they sold out really quickly.
That's no problem. I didn't know why they were for. That's okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Do you want an attorney? I can.
We've got a sandwich
Speak
over
offline.
Make up for it. Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Yes, Alan.
Just to thank the general manager for being at the CPUC hearing that they held in Seaside last month. He did a great presentation, did 2 presentations on the rate case, on our views of the ratepayers, and I appreciate him doing that. And I hope someday he can put it in his report to show everybody what he said at that rate case. So I want to just thank the general manager for the job well done.
Thank you for saying that. Yes.
To the Central District Association deal meeting 3 weeks ago. And I was most interested in the main discussion was around a new investment option with the special district fund. And it was new to me. I came home, all excited with information and so on. So I contacted Suresh about this. He said, yeah, we know. Okay, well.
The director is always the last to know.
It's really brand new. It's only about 4 or 6 months old. It was really brand new. And it was a big deal to special district interest. Anyway, and I was all excited because it was so new, but Suresh had already gotten on board on that issue.
Well, how great to be able to have somebody to know that our staff is so up to the minute that they, knew about it before we were even able to hear. So that's terrific. Okay, let's go ahead and close that item and go on to, now we have our public hearing, item number 14. And then this is going to be to receive and confirm the water supply forecast.
Yes, John Lear will cover this. This is an annual event. Every May, we do an assessment of where we stand storage-wise relative to needs for the subsequent 17 months. And not to steal all the thunder, but I am pleased to report we do not have drought conditions, nor do we expect to go into rationing in the coming year. John, take it away.
Thanks, Dave. Chair Adams, members of the board, good evening. And Joelle, if you could share item 14 PowerPoint, please.
Sarah, if you could share the PowerPoint presentation.
Thank you, Sarah.
I don't see a item 14 PowerPoint. Just 1 minute, please.
So I could just give some background in this time while it's coming up. Is this was a practice, as Dave said, it's an annual practice that was evolved by the board of directors, and it was primarily came about when the only sources for supply were the Carmel Valley alluvial aquifer and the Seaside groundwater basin. At some point in time, there were not as heavy regulatory limits on these sources, and it was imperative to look at them to make sure that if you were to incur a drought year in the following year, that you would be able to get through that following year. If not, it would trigger rationing in the year you're in, so you could save enough water to get through the year. So it was really a safety precaution. That's why it's called the water supply forecast. And as you can see, I'll point out as we go through this, that as we've built out more water supply projects and it's really to echo what Dave said, as our water supply projects get built out, our water supply becomes more robust and less subject to the need for rationing as we move through, as we kind of diversify our portfolio. So this will be public hearing item 14, and it will be to receive and confirm the water supply forecast for May 1st, 2023 through September 30th, 2024, which would be the rest of this water year 2023, and all of water year 2024. So next slide, please. So this forecast is for the current and projected demand, as we said, for that is going to come from the Monterey Peninsula Water Resources System. So to echo myself, previously, when the entirety of the supply for the peninsula came out of the system, this was the mechanism that was built to look at that. This will really be looking at the amount of water, or the component of water, that will still be coming out of the water rights of the 3376 off the river and the adjudicated native water in the Seaside Basin. So the system, Monterey Peninsula Water Resources System, is defined as the Carmel River, its tributaries, and groundwater that exists in the Carmel Valley alluvial aquifer system and the Seaside groundwater basin. Next slide, please. So here's the schematic. We see the Seaside groundwater basin on the north, and then the Carmel Valley alluvial aquifer system, both in blue, indicating the aquifers, and then the Carmel River system, as well as Los Padres Dam, and of course San Clemente Dam is no longer exists. Next slide, please. So not only does this forecast consider Cal-Am and the demand on the Cal-Am system, it also it considers all of the demand that will pull from the Monterey Peninsula Water Resource System for private demand as well. So at the time this mechanism was created, there was some summation of all of the non-Cal-Am production, and this is also accounted for in this forecast. And so any of the groundwater storage in the system as of May 2023, we term carryover storage. So we will be examining how much carryover storage we will need for the rest of this water year and water year 2024. Next slide, please. So it's based on the actual storage conditions, which is not related to the limitations that are put on the water systems. So that would be all of the water that is in the Carmel Valley alluvial aquifer, not just the annual amount of the 3376, and all of the water that would be the annual sustainable yield of the Seaside Basin, because it is supplying both Cal-Am and non-Cal-Am demands. The water supply forecast, if we did not have enough carryover storage, as I stated, would trigger a rationing trigger, and that would be set by the rationing and Stephanie's department, and then we would start rationing water use. Next slide, please. So here are the numbers. This actually shows a snapshot of where we are today and where our water is in our Monterey Peninsula Water Resource System. In our reservoir is still full and spilling, so it's at 100% of capacity. And in our aquifer system, we have upper and lower Carmel valleys. Upper Carmel Valley is at 96% of full, lower Carmel Valley is at 91% of full, and Seaside Coastal is at 71% of full. So a total system storage of 91%. So to your question earlier, Dave, the average monthly average is it's 102% of where we find ourselves on average for this month every year of the years that we've done the analyses. So 91% of storage is 102% of average for this month. Next slide, please.
Thank you, John.
I got you. I got your back. So when we look here, we have May to September demand. So that's the end of this water year. And we have what the component of the Monterey Peninsula water system that will be needed to supply Cal-Am demand, which is the 2,247 number, and non-Cal-Am demand, which is the 1,946 number, totaling 4,193. And then we have for next water year, we have California American Water that's available. So this is simply the 3376 out of the river plus the 1447 out of the Seaside Basin, not counting Pure Water Monterey, ASR Recovery, or Table 13. So this is just the component that we will need to produce out of the water resource system. And then the 3,000 for non-Cal-Am, which is 7,896. When we total those all together down in the right, we see that we need a total carryover storage of 12,089 acre feet in order to meet all of the demand we expect to happen on the Monterey Peninsula Water Resource System for the remainder of this water year, next water year. And as Dave stated earlier, what's in storage is 32,090. So we have enough carryover storage that it does not trigger rationing. Next slide, please. So this is what we just showed you. 32,090 is more than 12,089. So we have sufficient water to move through the end of water year 2024. Next slide, please. So the board's action with this, since it's a public hearing item, would be to receive this. And given our current carryover storage and determine that we have enough that is available to meet our needs, and we will continue to implement our water conservation at the current stage that we're at. And then it would be to make I think next slide, please, is to make the resolution finding this.
And just for clarification, the 3290 was actually corrected to 30,090, but because of version control with the PowerPoints, I think he picked up an older version. So you'll see 3 pages in a row. The first page says 3090. The next 2 pages should also say 3090. So
that is correct. Thank you.
It doesn't change the conclusion.
And this concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Thanks very much for the presentation. It's nice to have some good news to report, I'm sure. Okay, let's take it to our board and see if there are any questions or comments from the board of directors.
Thank you, John, for that. Question about the map that you included as exhibit 14A. And there are some areas that are shaded and some are not. What is the significance of that?
Can we bring that slide back up?
Yeah, it's exhibit 14A, so it's page 73 of the agenda packet. It's not your slide. It's in the agenda packet. One of the exhibits to your memo.
I see. Let me pull that up here.
And I looked at it and I thought I should be able to figure this out, but I wasn't.
Yeah, this is to give you a sense of the different vernacular. I believe 2 months ago, we included a two reports on pumping results for the water year. And the wells are in effect located in these different zones with the different acronyms. And so what you're seeing here overlapping
I see
yeah.
the legend, but it doesn't explain the shading.
the shading.
Oh, why
It's the map of the,
why it's
yes,
darker in areas and then it's yellow in areas.
yes.
Okay, yeah. Those are outlines of parcels, and so the areas that are darker are more density of smaller parcels. So you see they're in the city areas, and they're in on the flat of the valley, and then they get larger as you get up on the mountains on the north and south side of the valley, and then of course the Fort Ord is just a handful of parcels.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Thank you. Okay. Sort of the obvious answer, but I wasn't sure. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. And then my other question is, if you go to the very last page of the draft resolution, yeah, first of all, it says, be it resolved that the district staff shall add this attachment to District Rule 160. I don't know, what is this attachment one that it refers to? I don't know what that is. And then there's a correction about, to be made below that about the date of the red.
It says table 15.4.
Yeah, so the table XV4 will be that's a table that goes into the Rule 160 that basically states that the carryover storage is needed and what carryover storage you have that allows you to make that finding. And so the rule, when you make this resolution, you're actually changing that table in the rule for the next end of this water year and next water year. So the rule actually requires a table to be changed, and then you make your finding with that change of the table.
Okay, so now I see that table. Thank you, Mayor, for that. But we attachment one is not relevant then? Should that be deleted?
It will become relevant. So this becomes the attachment.
To the resolution?
To the resolution.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for clarifying that for me. And then finally, then it says passed and adopted 15th day of March, and I think we meant May, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And that's it from me. Thank you, John.
Thank you. Thank you for the correction.
Sort of 32,000. 30.
Yeah, and even in the staff report, we just, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Hearing, let's go out to the public. Is there any member of the public present in this room that wishes to make comment or ask questions? Seeing none, is there anyone online who wishes to make a comment or ask questions?
I see no raised hands.
Okay, very good. So with that, it's time we can take action from the board, and we will first close the public hearing now, and we will move to take action by the board. Is there a motion to approve the reputation and the report?
I move to approve resolution number 2023-06.
Very much. Is there a second? So thank you very much. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Any abstentions? Great. Okay, thank you very much. So with that, we will close this item and move on to item 15.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 15 should be brief, but there was a request during the Finance and Administration Committee to pull this out as a discussion item, just to give the board a little better understanding. This board did pass approved a addition to the budget without a firm grasp of what the work would cost. We were trying to be proactive so that we could continue the work on a schedule. There was some question about it feeling like it was an open-ended pledge. That's why we're bringing it back for this information. And Thomas Christensen should be ready to go with this presentation.
Okay, good evening, Chair Adams and members of the board. This is a quick update on the expenditure of the contingency funds used for the Sleepy Hollow Steelhead Rearing Facility Rearing Channel Rehabilitation Project. Next slide, please. So on March 20th, 2023, the board authorized $100,000 in contingency funds to complete the rearing channel rehabilitation. Based on this approval, the board requested updates at the Finance and Administrative Committee meetings. As a reminder to everyone and the public that may be listening, the district has gone in and started to repair the rearing channel where young of the year steelhead are kept during the summer months. The original channel was built in 1996 and had a liner that was starting to fail and rip. So this project was to basically replace that liner and then create a foundation for the new liner to sit on, which would be made of concrete and not just earth materials. I think, there, okay. And so Time and Construction has been doing this work, and as we were kind of getting towards the end of the project, we were still kind of in the thick of winter, and Larry was concerned that we might run out of contract funds and didn't want to put the contractor on hold, so he requested this emergency contingency money. Next slide, please. So as you can see here, they had to remove the existing liner and the gravel that was down in the channel that was kind of the simulated habitat for the young of the year steelhead. Additional drains were, a drain was put in, as well as a French drain to prevent water from creating problems in the rearing channel. Looks like I lost my slide there.
Wrong presentation.
Yeah.
Okay, and then next slide, please. So as you can see, there's the rebar that's placed on the picture on the right. This is before the concrete was poured, and then the new drain that went in. Next slide, please. So basically, the project is nearing completion. This is the new liner and the new gravel placement, and very few dollars have been spent of that contingency. Next slide, please. So the board has authorized a total of $839,500 for this work. The authorized work by Larry, including change orders, is $747,033. So currently, of the original $100,000 of contingency, there remains $92,467. I've been in communication with Larry. We think that there are no big surprises left. There is a punch list of remaining things that the contractor is supposed to work on, but we feel that we will not be coming close to spending, that contingency amount of $92,000. Next slide, please. So the final piece of this puzzle, as far as a status update, is that we are going to be testing the facility and running water through the rearing channel as soon as the pumps that were damaged by the high flows in the river are repaired. Those pumps will be reinstalled, and then we can start testing the rearing channel and kind of finalizing the work that the contractor has to do out there to complete the project. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much for your update. Appreciate it very much, Tom. Any questions or comments from our directors?
I just want to thank you for the report. I was a little concerned about the 100,000 seemed like an open book to me at the time, and I'm glad to get this update. And it was an open book that you may not have needed, but anyway, the update is good news.
And when we close out the punch list, we'll give a final report to Finance and Administration Committee.
Thank you for all that.
Any other comments, Dave, before we go out to the public?
No.
See if anybody has questions from the public in-house or online.
Yes, we have one raised hand. This time I would like to invite Michael Bear. Michael, when you're ready, please present your comment.
It's been a great meeting, very interesting. My comment on this item is thank you. I've heard a lot about Sleepy Hollow, and I've just seen kind of pictures of part of the river. So to actually see the pictures, looks fantastic out there, and I really appreciate the visual. So it helps me understand. I had no idea it looked like that out there. So I thank you. That's it.
You're welcome.
If I could just
Thank you very much. Yes, Mark.
Chair Adams, one quick point. As was represented by Thomas to the Finance Committee, when this is up and running, the directors, we're gonna go out. We're gonna go take a look at it. Yes, you're gonna give us the guided tour.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
Good. Good. Any other comments from the board? Okay, just finally, we've got our informational items and staff reports. And are there any comments by the general manager, district council?
We are complete.
Okay, thank you very much. With nothing else to be heard or said, I will adjourn this meeting at 7:45. That's a lot better. Thank you all so much for being with us this evening.
Recording stopped.